Yo, my name is Bondrin. This is my Mistweaver guide. I'll be covering everything for raiding, and if you want to go for Mythic Plus, I'll have a section for that in the end. You can look in the description for certain timestamps if you want to find something specific. I'll not be going into too much detail. The guide is meant for you to be able to quick start your Mistweaver and go straight into the raiding and Mythic Plus content. I hope you enjoy. You want to go Venthyr. Venthyr is the best covenant by far. It will give you the most healing. You want to go the Theotar Soulbind with this route. You want to stick all the way to the left, and at the end you want to go to the right side. For Conduits you have 3 endurance slots and you have 3 potency slots. For the endurance slots you want to go these 3, these are the best defensive ones by far. For the 3 potency ones you want one that buffs your Fallen Order, one that buffs your Gust of Mists, and one that buffs your Revival. As for talents, this is the most standard build that will work for 90% of the bosses. There are some bosses in which you will need a different talent build, which I will show you in a bit. Starting at the first row, Chi Burst is the best option by far, because it has the most value in a large group size. Also in a while ago when Sepulchre came out, Mistwrap got nerfed to no longer work on Fallen Order, so it's no longer that great in raids. For the second row, it's a mobility row. I'd suggest always picking Tiger's Lust. It's very good for different situations. It's both a speed boost as well as like a snare removal. So it's very powerful, instead of the other options are just purely for yourself and don't have a lot of benefit to it. As for the third row, Mana Tea is the best option in terms of direct mana gain if you use it well during its window. Although if you don't use it well, Spirit of the Crane is fine because it can keep up with the mana gain. Though of course Spirit of the Crane is more spread out during the fight instead of the burst windows that Mana Tea likes to have. So it's up to you. As for the fourth row, Ring of Peace is almost always the way to go. There are not a lot of uses for it in raids, mostly for ads. There are some fights where Tiger Tail Sweep can be really good. This is for seeing certain ads, for example on Mythic Anduin. As for the fifth row, it's a defensive row. Diffuse Magic is by far the best defensive if the fight has magic damage, which 99% of all bosses do have. But Diffuse Magic is such an insane CD, you can just ignore certain mechanics with it. You can also reflect certain things back onto the boss for damage. This is mostly useful in Mythic Plus, which we'll come to later. An example of a boss where you don't want Diffuse Magic is Sludge Fist, for example, in Castle Natria, because he doesn't have any magic damaging abilities. So for that fight you want to go Dampen Harm. As for the second to last row, Refreshing Jade Wind will be your pick in 90% of the cases. There are some bosses where you want Chi-Ji, for example Mythic Calandrus, because people are not always stacked up that much. Another example of a fight where you might pick Chi-Ji are things like Sludge Fist, because, well, as I said, people are not stacked up, and at that point Chi-Ji has more value than what Jade Wind can give you. As for the last row, you will always pick Rising Mist. There is no other option here. Rising Mist will give you the most healing and most throughput. One special case is Kill Thas in Castle Natria. For this you go a lot of different talents just because it's a purely single target healing fight. For that fight you will want to go Mistwrap, Mana Tea you can stay, you want to go Jade Serpent Statue, and you want to go Focused Thunder. This will bring you the most burst single target healing that you can get. As for Legendaries, you want to use Unity, of course, this is standard, and you want to use Ancient Teachings of the Monastery. This will give you the best healing by far. There is no other legendary that comes even close to that legendary. The tier set is very nice to have, but it doesn't change your playstyle at all. The 2 set is just a straight up boost to Essence Font, and the 4 set causes your Thunder Focus Tea to drop a rune on the floor, and while you stand inside it you'll gain a healing boost. Something to note is that it's a flat healing boost of 450, it's not a percentage healing boost. So what that means is that certain abilities work better with it than others. For example, it is not worth at all to save this for a revival, because it would only add 450 on top of your revival and it's not percentage based. But for example, things like Essence Font or Refreshing Jade Wind with a lot of small ticks, they will tick really hard with this buff up. So I suggest just saving your Essence Font and stuff for it, because it will tick really hard with this buff up. For stats, you want Crit the most, followed by Haste and Verse, followed by Mastery. Do not focus Mastery at all, it is not a good stat, it is not worth getting. Crit, on the other hand, is really good, because it reduces the CD of your Fallen Order more by the more crits you get. So you want to get a lot of crit. Of course you don't want to get too much crit, aim for around 1100 or 1200, and after that you can switch into Haste and Verse. The balance of these haste and burst, it depends on your personal preference. I prefer a little bit more haste, just because I think it plays nicer, but that's up to you. In terms of slots for legendaries, you prefer it to be on the slot with a lot of main stats, for example Helm. The second slot can be whatever you want, maybe a ring for secondary stats, or in my case bracers for the main stat. There are a lot of good trinkets to get. One that is the best is Unbound Changeling. You want this with a haste proc, it is the best trinket you can get by far. The second trinket is a little bit more up to you. It depends on what you want to play and how you want to play. For example, IQD is a really good choice if you use it in combination with your invoke. If you get a lot of haste during your invoke, you can get a lot of healing, a lot of burst healing in your Yulon window. If not, you can go for something more passive, like an Elegy, or you can go for something like a Ruby. A Ruby you want to proc during your Fallen Order to get more crit. There are a lot of different options here. The Alchemist Stone is also a very good option, grants you all the base stats. So the second trinket is up to you, but I definitely recommend getting Unbound Changeling. As a Mistweaver, you have certain cooldowns that you need to think of. One of them is Standard Focus Tea, it's 30 seconds cooldown. I wouldn't suggest planning this ahead, and I would suggest using it on cooldown. That will give you the most healing over the course of a fight. Next up is Life Cocoon. You can either use this on the tank to make them survive, or you can use it on other people if they are dying to certain mechanics. Next cooldown is Fallen Order. It tends to be around 1 minute 50 or 2 minutes CD. This depends on your crit and your luck, because we reduce it using our Unity legendary. You want to use this as many times during a fight. You can't plan it ahead if you want, but using it on cooldown will also get some great results. Next up is Revival. This is a big burst of healing and also dispels people. This is usually planned ahead in a fight where heavy damage is happening. Next cooldown is Invoke. It's either Invoke Yulon if you don't have the Chi-Ji talent, or to Invoke Chi-Ji if you do have the talent. And I'll show you how to work with it. So the way it works is that during Invoke, your Enveloping Mists are buffed. And the way that they are buffed is every time you cast Enveloping Mists, there's an extra hot that will be cast on the closest 5 people called Enveloping Breath. So what you want to do is you want to cast Invoke Yulon, and then you want to spam Enveloping Mist a couple times on people so they get the second healing buff. So it's on the entire raid, and then you want to cast Rising Sun Kick to extend that Enveloping Mists on different people. It is preferred to get an IQD or an Innervate during Invoke, because it will boost the burst healing by a ton. Invoke Chi-Ji buffs Enveloping Mist as well and works the same way, though you want to use it a little different, because every time you use Invoke Chi-Ji, certain attacking abilities will give you a stack of a buff, and this buff reduces the cast time of the Enveloping Mist. So what you want to do is you want to cast Chi-Ji, use a couple damaging abilities so you gain stacks, and at 3 stacks your next Enveloping Mist becomes instant, and you can cast it on anyone and it will cast the extra buff as well. This is very handy, so what you do is you just do your DPS rotation as usual, and then every once in a while you cast your buffed Enveloping Mist. As a healer you don't have a set rotation of course, but there is a certain priority and a certain way of playing that I will explain to you. So what you want to achieve is you want to get Essence Font on the entire raid for as long as possible. Essence Font will be your most healed ability by the end of the fight, so it's important that you get this right, because the more Essence Fonts you get, the higher your healing will be. To achieve this, you want to first cast Essence Font, and then keep extending those Essence Fonts using Rising Mist. So you want to keep using Rising Sun Kicks to keep extending the Essence Font to get the most heal. To get the most Rising Sun Kick casts in a fight, you want to always use Thunder Focus Tea on Rising Sun Kick. On top of that, you want to use your passive called Teachings of the Monastery. This is a base Mistweaver passive. What this passive does is every Blackout Kick has a chance to reset your Rising Sun Kick, and every Tiger Palm makes your next Blackout Kick strike more times. Teachings of the Monastery can stack up to 3 times, so you can get up to 3 extra Blackout Kick casts. The most efficient way to get Rising Sun Kick resets, however, is by just going on 1 stack. So what that will look like is you will cast a Rising Sun Kick, Tiger Palm, Blackout Kick and hope for a reset. And again, Tiger Palm, Blackout Kick and hope for resets. If you want the most damage out of your Rising Sun Kick, you will go to 3 stacks of Teachings of the Monastery. So how that looks is Rising Sun Kick, 3 times Tiger Palm to get to 3 stacks, and then a Blackout Kick and hope for reset. The other healing abilities you have is Chi Burst. You want to cast this on cooldown, it does a lot of healing in a straight line. The other ability is Jade Winds. You want to use this when there are a lot of people stacked up around you. You don't want to use it all the time because it costs a lot of mana to cast. You want to use Vivify during Mana Tea windows. So how that looks is you pop Mana Tea and then you start spamming Vivifies all over the raid. This is the most efficient way to use your Mana Tea. Enveloping Mist is not a great ability to cast because it also costs a lot of mana and it's purely single target. You can use this on tanks if you want, and you can also keep extending it using the same way that we used to extend the Essence Font. So what changes from Mythic Plus? In terms of talents, you want to take Mist Wrap and you want to take Chi-Ji. This is because both Refreshing Jade, Wind and Chi Burst don't have a lot of value for a 5-man party. In terms of diffuse magic, it is really strong in dungeons. You can reflect certain abilities, and it's still a 60% DR is amazing to have. Ring of Peace gets a lot more value in dungeons. You can use it in combination with your tank to group mobs up, or you can use it to interrupt even. It's up to you, but it's a really strong talent. In terms of gearing, nothing much changes. Crit becomes a little bit less valuable in favor of Haste and Verse, just because Haste and Verse have a lot more value in dungeons, because you can do more damage and you can stay alive longer and keep other people alive. There is one trinket that I want to mention, which is this trinket. It's from Sepulchre, it's from the sausage. It is an insane trinket. It will almost double your DPS in dungeons if you use it correctly. If you have this trinket laying around, use it. It is amazing. In terms of Soulbind, you want to swap one thing. You want to go away from token and you want to go to Wasteland Propriety. This will give your party Verse when you go into Fallen Order. You also take this Conduit that will reduce enemy damage done if you leg sweep them, which is very handy. If you want to see some gameplay, you can check out my other videos of the boss kills in Sepulchre. You can also check out my Twitch channel, which will be linked in the description. I will also put a link there to the Monk Discord channel, where you can find a lot of good information. I hope you enjoyed the video, and take care.